The twin suns burned over the slave market of Drellic 9. The air was dry, full of dust and shouts. Traders, guards, and buyers moved through cages and platforms. Chains rattled, and alien voices cried out names and prices. This was not a place for kindness. Captain Raylan walked slowly through the crowd. He had only come for spare ship parts and fuel, not trouble, and definitely not a slave. But then, he saw her. She was small, thin, and shaking. Her grayish-blue skin was bruised, her wrists red from iron cuffs. She stood on a wooden platform with her head down. She didn't scream like the others, didn't beg or plead. She just stood there, like she had already given up. The auctioneer shouted, "Next, a quiet one. Good for work, barely eats." The crowd laughed cruelly. One alien shouted, "I'll give 10 credits for the broken toy." Another said, "She won't last a week." Raylan kept watching her. There was something strange in her stillness. Not fear, not even sadness. It was emptiness, like she didn't believe she was alive anymore. Something in his chest twisted. 50 credits, Raylan said loudly. The crowd turned, surprised. The auctioneer blinked, then grinned. "Huh, the human wants her. Do I hear 60? No one answered. No one cared enough to fight for her. Sold, the auctioneer said. Hitting the gong, the girl didn't move, didn't even look up. Raylan walked over, took the chain gently from the guard. He looked at her and said softly, "Let's go." She followed him, head still low, steps small and slow. They walked back to his ship through the dusty road. People stared, some laughed, some whispered. One alien merchant called out, "Hey human, that thing's cursed." Raylan didn't answer. He opened his ship's door, and she paused at the edge. She looked confused, like she didn't believe she was allowed inside. He nodded. "Go on, it's okay." She stepped in carefully, like a shadow not wanting to be seen. Inside the ship, Raylan unlocked her cuffs. She stared at her wrists for a long time, like she didn't recognize them. He gave her a blanket, clean water, and food. She just sat silently, not touching any of it. Raylan sat across from her, unsure what to say. After a while, he said gently, "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't respond, didn't blink. He added, "You're not a slave anymore." Still, no answer, just silence, like the words meant nothing to her. He got up, walked to the hallway, and said one last thing, "You can rest now." Then he left her alone in the room. Later that night, Raylan checked the ship's cameras. She hadn't moved much, but she had pulled the blanket over her. She sat holding it tightly, like it was the first warm thing she had felt in years. He didn't know her name, where she came from, or what had happened to her, but he knew one thing. She was not going back to that place. Not ever. And even though she didn't know it yet, she had just taken her first step toward something new. Not chains, not fear, but maybe, just maybe, a real home. Asterisk. The ship floated quietly in space, far from the noise of the slave market. Raylan sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the dark stars outside. But his mind was on the girl in the next room. She hadn't said a single word since the auction. She hadn't cried or yelled, hadn't asked for anything. She just sat there, like a ghost, not angry, not curious, just empty. Raylan brought her food in the morning. She looked at the plate, then at him. He waited, hoping she would speak, but she didn't. She waited until he nodded, and only then did she slowly begin to eat. Every bite was small, careful, like she thought it might be taken away. When she finished, she folded her hands in her lap and looked down. Raylan asked softly, "Do you want more?" She shook her head. "Are you warm enough?" No answer. "Do you understand me?" She nodded once, very slowly. He tried again. "You're free now. You don't have to obey." Her eyes twitched slightly, but her head stayed low. Then she whispered, her voice dry and quiet, "What does free mean?" Raylan blinked. He hadn't expected that. He sat down across from her and tried to explain. "It means you can say no," he said. "You can leave the room. Eat when you want. Sleep when you want. She stared at him, confused. No chains? She asked. No, he said. No punishment. No punishment, he promised. She looked down again. Her fingers played nervously with the edge of the blanket. After a long silence, she asked, "Why did you buy me, if not to use me?" Raylan's voice was gentle. "Because you looked like no one else would. And I couldn't walk away." She didn't reply. But something in her shoulders loosened, just a little. Later, he showed her around the ship. She followed silently, like a shadow. When he showed her the control panel, she tilted her head. He showed her the food dispenser, the shower, the bed. When he said, "This is your room now," she stepped inside but didn't sit on the bed. Instead, she sat on the floor in the corner, like she had been trained to do. Raylan watched her quietly. He didn't correct her, not yet. He just left the door open so she wouldn't feel trapped. That night, he heard soft sounds from her room. He checked the camera screen. She had crawled up onto the bed, then back down, then back up again. Finally, she curled up under the blanket and fell asleep. It was her first time sleeping in a bed. The next day, she was standing in the hallway when Raylan woke up. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest. Her eyes looked unsure. He said gently, "Good morning." She said nothing. He offered her breakfast. She waited until he nodded before taking the first bite. They ate in silence for many days, but each day, she sat a little closer to the table. Each day, her bites grew less cautious. Once, she even looked out the window at the stars. Her eyes were wide, almost childlike. Raylan began calling her Starling. He needed something to call her, and she didn't offer a name. When he first said it, she blinked slowly. "You gave me a name?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "You deserve one," she whispered. "No one ever gave me a name." Then she touched her chest lightly, as if testing the word on herself. "Starling," she said again, softly. Later, while he worked on the engine, she stood behind him quietly. He asked if she wanted to learn. She nodded, and for the first time, he saw something new in her face: curiosity. He handed her a tool, explained what to do. She watched closely, fingers trembling. But she listened well, and when she fixed a loose panel, her lips twitched, almost into a smile. That night, Raylan passed her room. The door was open a little. Inside, she sat cross-legged on the bed. She was drawing stars on the wall with her fingertip, over and over. When she saw him, she didn't flinch. She looked at him and whispered, "They're beautiful." He nodded. "Yes," he said, "and now, so are you." Days passed like quiet waves, soft and slow. Starling spoke very little, but she no longer hid in corners. She moved through the ship like a shadow, learning to cast its own light. She had started brushing her hair each morning. It was messy, uneven, but she tried. Raylan noticed, but never said too much. He didn't want to scare her back into silence. One morning, he found her sitting near the window, staring out at a nebula. Its soft green clouds shimmered like mist, dancing in the dark. She didn't look at him, but she said softly, "Is it alive?" Raylan smiled. "No, just gas and light," she whispered. "It feels like it's breathing." She didn't say anything else, but that one question told Raylan something important. She was thinking again, dreaming again. He started teaching her basic things: buttons, tools, names of objects. She picked them up fast, faster than he expected. When she didn't know a word, she pointed. When she made a mistake, she would look at him with wide, guilty eyes, and he would simply say, "It's okay, try again." Every time, her hands shook a little less. One afternoon, the ship's comms system glitched. A warning beep echoed, and the panel lights flickered. Raylan was in the storage bay, and didn't hear it at first, but Starling was near the bridge. She looked at the flashing screen, and froze. Then slowly, carefully, she pressed the right button, and silenced the alarm. Raylan rushed in a minute later, breathing hard. He looked around and saw everything was fine. Starling pointed to the panel. It said temperature warning, engine cooling low. She whispered. Raylan blinked in surprise. "You understood that?" She nodded slowly, looking unsure. I pressed this, like you showed me before. Raylan stared at her, then laughed. Softly. You did great, he said. You stopped the system from overheating. She looked down, hands gripping the chair. Then so small, so brief it happened. She smiled. It wasn't big. Just a tiny lift of the corner of her lips. But it was real, and it reached her eyes. Raylan didn't say anything right away. He just smiled back, gentle and proud. She quickly looked away, shy and confused, but the smile had already happened, and it changed everything. That evening, Raylan made a warm meal vegetable stew from rehydrated packs. He placed 2 bowls on the table. Starling came quietly, as usual, but when she sat down, she spoke without being asked. You smile, eh? Lot. Raylan raised an eyebrow. Is that a bad thing? No, she said. Just strange. He chuckled. You smiled today too. You know. She blushed, eyes wide. I did not. You did, he said, gently tapping his spoon. Right after you saved the ship. She looked away, but her lips twitched again. You're making it up, she whispered. Raylan grinned. Maybe, but if I am, you'll just have to prove me wrong with another one. Starling stared at him, quiet for a while. Then she asked softly, why are you kind to me? Raylan put his spoon down. Because you deserve kindness, he said. No one should have to earn it. Her hands trembled slightly. Then she looked down and whispered, I don't know how to be anything except afraid. Raylan replied, that's okay. You don't have to be anything except yourself. That night, she sat on her bed, the door half open again. Raylan passed by and heard her humming. A soft sound, tuneless, but peaceful. He didn't interrupt. He just smiled to himself and kept walking. The next day, she asked him if she could help fix a loose pipe in the water system. She didn't wait to be told. She wanted to do it, and when she finished, hands dirty but proud, she looked up at him. Is it okay? She asked. Raylan nodded. Perfect. And this time, her smile lasted longer. Starling was laughing, just a little, as she helped Raylan wipe oil from his hands. The engine was finally running smooth, and for once, the ship felt like home. Raylan watched her with quiet pride. Her steps were lighter now, her eyes clearer. She even started calling him by name, softly, like she was still testing the sound. But peace never lasts long in deep space, and the past, no matter how far you fly, always finds a way back. It started with a soft ping on the comms terminal. Raylan checked it without much thought, probably a supply station signal. But when he saw the message, his blood ran cold. Bounty alert. Fugitive slave, escaped property of Zarn Syndicate, suspected with human companion. Reward, 10,000 credits, dead or alive. A grainy image of Starling filled the corner of the screen. Thin, frightened, and in chains. Raylan's jaw tightened. They think she ran, he muttered. But she didn't run. He bought her, saved her. He turned off the screen and walked to her room. She was sitting cross-legged on her bed, sketching stars again with her fingertip. She looked up and saw the worry in his face. What's wrong? She asked, voice quiet. He hesitated, then sat beside her. They're looking for you, he said. Your old masters. Her body froze, like all her breath had been taken away. Her hands dropped to her lap. Zern, she whispered. They never forget. Raylan reached out slowly. You're safe. I won't let them take you. But Starling was already shaking her head. They'll come. They always do. They'll kill you if they think you're hiding me. I'm not hiding you, he said firmly. I'm protecting you. But her eyes were filled with fear. I should leave, she whispered. I don't want you to get hurt. Raylan stood and pointed to the floor. This ship is your home now, he said. You're not going anywhere. She didn't argue, but that night, she didn't sleep. And neither did Raylan. The next morning, they were being followed. A small ship had picked up their trail too fast, too quiet, too direct. Raylan changed course, switched off outer beacons, and tried to lose them in a debris field. But the ship stayed behind them like a shadow. Who is it? Starling asked. gripping the edge of the table. Someone sent to collect the bounty. Raylan said, his voice sharp. She trembled. They'll chain me again. Raylan looked at her. Not while I'm breathing. He handed her a small toolkit. Go to the engine bay. Lock yourself in. If anything happens, wait 10 minutes, then fly the ship out. Starling stared at him in horror. No, I won't leave you. You might have to, he said, but I'll try to make sure it doesn't come to that. As the enemy ship closed in, Raylan sent a false signal and shut down all lights. From the outside, it looked like a broken, drifting ship. The bounty hunters docked, expecting easy prey. They weren't expecting Raylan. He met them in the corridor with a blaster and a shock grenade. Turn around and leave, he growled. The lead hunter grinned. You're harboring property. Raylan replied coldly. She's not property. She's under my protection. A fight broke out, short and brutal. Raylan took a cut to the arm but stunned both intruders. He dragged them back to their ship, dumped them inside, and set it adrift on emergency return. They'd survive, but they wouldn't forget him. When he came back inside, he found Starling crouched in the hallway, eyes wide with panic. She ran to him, saw the blood on his sleeve. You're hurt, she cried, reaching for him. It's nothing, he said. They're gone. She looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. You came back, she whispered. He blinked. Of course I did. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, trembling. It was the first time she'd ever touched him without fear. I thought I lost everything again, she whispered. Raylan held her gently. You haven't lost anything, he said. You've only just started gaining. That night, she slept near the control room. She didn't want to be alone, and for the first time since they met, she didn't ask permission to stay close. She just did. The ship glided over a small green moon, far away from any busy trade routes. It wasn't rich. It wasn't famous. But Raylan didn't care. He wasn't looking for gold or glory. He was looking for safety for her. Starling stood beside him, on the bridge, watching the land grow larger below. There were trees, small houses, and soft rivers cutting through the hills. She had never seen such a place before. It felt like something out of a dream. This is it, Raylan said. No cities, no syndicates, no slavers. She turned her eyes to him, unsure. But, is it real? He smiled. As real as anything we've seen. They landed near a quiet village where the people were simple farmers and traders. Raylan had been here once, long ago. He had helped fix a water system for them, and they remembered. An old woman greeted them first, her eyes sharp but kind. Raylan introduced himself, then nodded to Starling. This is Starling, my companion. The woman raised an eyebrow at the alien girl, but she said nothing rude. Only, we don't see many like her. She won't cause trouble, Raylan said. The woman stared at Starling for a moment, then nodded slowly. Then she's welcome. For now, they were given an old stone house near the trees. Small, but clean. Raylan spent the day repairing the roof, while Starling cleaned inside. She scrubbed the floor like she was still trying to earn her place. Raylan had to stop her gently. You're not a servant, he said. You don't have to prove anything here. That night, they ate together under the stars. The wind was cool, and for the first time in her life, Starling wasn't surrounded by metal or chains. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "This is the first place I've ever heard silence, in the morning." Raylan showed her the garden behind the house. It was overgrown, wild, and full of weeds. But there were vegetables hidden beneath the mess. If we care for it, he said, it'll grow again. Starling knelt down and touched the soil. It was warm and soft. She smiled without thinking. I want to try, she said. In the days that followed, they built a new routine. Raylan helped the village with machines, and in return, they gave food and supplies. Starling worked in the garden, pulling weeds, planting seeds. The dirt under her nails didn't bother her feel alive. Some villagers watched her with curiosity. Children pointed, whispered, asked questions. One brave little girl walked right up and said, "Why do you look different?" Starling blinked, unsure how to answer. "I just do," she said softly. The girl nodded, smiled, and gave her a flower. "Different is okay." That evening, Starling held the flower in her hands for a long time. No one had ever given her something. Just to be kind. Raylan saw her from the porch and asked, "Everything all right?" She nodded slowly. "I think I belong here." He smiled. "That's because this is your home now." She looked around at the sky, the trees, the small house with smoke gently rising from the chimney. Then she said something that made Raylan freeze. "I don't feel like property anymore." He didn't speak for a moment. Then he walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You never were," he said. "They just made you believe that." That night, she sat near the fire, sewing a small patch into her shirt. Own design. Her own choice. Raylan watched quietly. "You're becoming someone strong," he said. She looked up and whispered, "I was always someone." He nodded. "Yes. But now you see it too." And for the first time since they left that dark auction block, she looked not just safe, not just healed, but alive. It had been many peaceful months. The garden behind their home was green and full. Starling had learned how to cook simple meals, and even taught some of the village children how to plant herbs. She laughed more now, and sometimes even sang quietly. When she thought no one was listening, Raylan worked with the local builders, fixing engines, pipes, and power lines. He would come home each night with dirt on his hands, and Starling would meet him at the door. Their life was not rich, but it was full of small, quiet joys. But peace, like a bubble, can break without warning. It began with a visitor. A tall man in fine clothes arrived on a sleek silver shuttle. He walked through the village like he owned the ground beneath his feet. His eyes scanned faces until they landed on Hurst Starling, standing near the well with a water bucket. She felt it in her chest like a thunderclap. The air around her turned heavy. She knew that face. His name was Lorek, one of the Zarn syndicate's gentle slavers, his voice always soft, his chains always tight. He smiled when he saw her. "A pleasant surprise," he said, walking toward her slowly. "You've grown. Lovely." Starling backed away, heart pounding. The bucket slipped from her fingers and hit the ground, spilling water across the dirt. "I'm not yours," she said, voice shaking. "Ah," he sighed. "But you were, and under Zarn law." "You still are." Raylan came running when he saw the shuttle. He pushed through the crowd and placed himself between Starling and Larek. "Step back," Raylan warned. "You're not welcome here." Larek raised his hands calmly. "No need for violence, human," he said. "I've only come to retrieve what belongs to my employers." "She's not a thing," Raylan growled. "She was purchased legally, from the auction." Larek smirked. "Ah yes, but not through official release papers, I'm afraid." He pulled out a datapad and held up an image of Starling. Younger, thinner, collared. Zarn law says her status was never removed, which makes this theft. A silence fell over the villagers. Some backed away, not wanting to get involved. Others whispered nervously, unsure what to believe. The village elder, the same old woman who had welcomed them, stepped forward. "Let's not spill blood in the street," she said. "We'll hold a council meeting tonight. Decide the truth, and make our decision." Raylan clenched his fists, but nodded. He looked at Starling, who hadn't moved since the moment she saw Larek come. He said gently, guiding her back home. She walked like a statue, her mind far away. That night, the village hall was filled. Raylan stood before the crowd, hands shaking with quiet anger. He told them everything, how he found her, how she healed, how she worked beside him in peace. "She's not a slave," he said. "She's a person." Larek stood next, calm as ever. He spoke of laws, contracts, and syndicate rights. "She is marked in our system," he said. "She must be returned." Finally, the elder turned to Starling. "Child," she asked softly, "what do you want?" The room grew silent. Starling stepped forward, legs trembling. "I want to stay," she whispered. I was never a thing, but they made me believe I was. She raised her chin slowly. I'm not afraid anymore, not because I forget, because someone finally treated me like I matter. Her voice shook, but it rang out clear. I don't want revenge. I don't want to run. I just want peace. A long silence followed, then the elder turned to Lorek. You may take your contracts and leave, she said firmly. She belongs to no one but herself. Larek's calm face finally cracked. You dare defy Zarn command. The villagers stepped forward, one by one, not with weapons, but with unity. Raylan stood beside Starling, his arm around her shoulders. If you try to take her, you'll have to go through all of us, he said. Larek's eyes narrowed, but he knew better than to start a fight he couldn't win. He turned, walked out, and boarded his shuttle without another word. As the ship vanished into the night sky, Starling let out a long breath. It was over. The last tie to her old life had been cut. This time, not by chains, but by her own voice. She turned to Raylan and whispered, Thank you, he smiled. You saved yourself, Starling. The moon was quiet again. The wind moved through the trees gently, carrying the smell of fresh soil and warm bread. Peace had returned, not just to the land but to her heart. Starling sat on the porch, knees pulled to her chest, watching the stars, the same stars she once feared would carry her back to the dark places. But now, they looked soft, beautiful, like lights leading to something better. Raylan was inside the house, fixing an old radio. His sleeves were rolled up, and his hands moved carefully. He hummed softly to himself, like he always did when focused. Starling smiled without realizing. She had grown stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. She could speak to the villagers now without fear. She had friends, even laughter, and every day. She did something by choice, not by order. One morning Raylan came to her with a letter in his hand. He looked uncertain. It's from the outer station, he said. They offered me a job. Permanent. She blinked. Out there. He nodded. On a larger colony. Good pay. Strong connections. She looked down at the table. Oh, she whispered. That's good. Raylan sat across from her. But I haven't said yes, he added. She looked up, confused. Why not? He shrugged. Because I won't go unless you want to. Her heart thudded loudly in her chest. He wasn't forcing her, wasn't deciding for her. He was asking. I'm not a child, she said slowly, and I'm not scared anymore. He nodded, waiting patiently. I can go if I want to. She added. Yes, he said, but I won't ask you to leave a home you finally built. She looked around the garden, the stone house, the mountains in the distance. She touched the patch on her shirt she had sewn herself. Then she looked at Raylan. Really looked. You gave me safety, she said. But more than that, you gave me time, choice, and a name. He stayed quiet, letting her speak. And now, I want to choose something too. She stood up, walked toward him. I choose to stay, she said, her voice calm and clear. I choose you. Raylan smiled, but his eyes glistened. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. And now she had made the most powerful choice of all. From that day forward, they built more than a home. They built a life, side by side. Starling started teaching younger children how to grow food and use simple tools. She shared her story, not the pain, but the hope. Raylan opened a workshop in the village, fixing machines and trading goods. People came from nearby moons just to ask for help, and Starling stood beside him, no longer hiding, no longer afraid. One evening, the village threw a gathering under the stars, a festival for peace and harvest. Lanterns floated in the sky, music played, and children ran with ribbons. Starling wore a simple white dress she made herself. Raylan offered her his hand. Would you dance? He asked. She hesitated, laughing nervously. I don't know how. Good, he said. Neither do I. They danced clumsily, laughing together. And when the villagers clapped, Starling bowed with a smile that reached the sky. A true smile. not born from survival, but from joy. Later that night, sitting on the porch again, she looked up. "I used to think my life would end in a cage," she whispered. Raylan said nothing, just listened. "But now, I see stars and feel free." He gently placed a hand over hers. "You were never meant to be in chains." She leaned against him, tired but peaceful. "And now," she whispered, "I never will be again." In the distance, fireflies blinked, like tiny stars in the grass, and above them, the sky watched quietly. Two souls who found each other, not by fate, but by choice, and in that choice, they found something rare, something stronger than pain, louder than fear, and deeper than memory. They found home.